In the words of id Software, in Doom 2016 we asked you to run and gun, in Doom Eternal it was jump and shoot, and in Doom the Dark Ages you're gonna stand and fight. This entry in the long-running franchise seems to focus on just being a heavy, unstoppable force as you rip and tear your way through the hordes of hell. In reality, does this work for a Doom game, or are the agility and speed an essential part of the process? What's up? How's it going, people? Welcome to Casual Gamer Reviews. If you enjoy this review, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, or if you don't like it, please give it a thumbs down and let me know how it can be better for you. It took me 20 hours to run through the campaign and a further 2 hours to get the 100%, reviewed on Xbox Series X. The core of any Doom game and the most important aspect is the combat, so that's where I will start with this review. As I said in my intro, id Software were branding this game as stand and fight, which gave the impression that this was going to be a slower and heavier approach to combat. I'll disperse those rumors right here, as Doom the Dark Ages still feels incredibly fast and fluid to play. It no longer has the platforming of Doom Eternal, but you can still launch yourself all over the place using the new weapon, the Saw Shield. The Saw Shield is what the combat in this game is centered around. It can block, it can parry, it can be thrown, it can be used to dash, it can have rune powers attached to it, and it can also be used for traversal. Blocking and parrying is an absolute necessity in this game. Each enemy has the potential to have a green attack, and these green attacks are what can be parried. A successful parry will slow the enemy down, injure them, power up your melee attack, and also activate your shield's rune power. The bigger elite enemies will usually have a combo of green attacks which can make you feel like you're in almost a Souls-like game getting your parry timings down, albeit nowhere near as difficult, so don't worry. The parry window I found to be very generous. The shield runes that activate on parry come in 4 flavors: Ground Fisher, Holy Swarm, Auto Turret, and Heaven Splitter. These are all unlocked through story progression and then can be further upgraded using the normal upgrade system I will talk about shortly. Ground Fisher is much what it says on the tin and sends a huge braking force through the ground to obliterate enemies. Holy Swarm shoots spiritual daggers that impale your enemies. Auto Turret causes a mini turret to appear on your shoulder and fill your foes with lead. And then finally Heaven Splitter, which was my favorite, sends lightning shocks that can chain and stun. All 4 of these were very fun to use, and it was a nice addition of spice to go alongside the gun combat. Outside of the blocking and parrying, the shield can be thrown or used to dash. Throwing the shield at a basic enemy will instantly slice them in half and kill them. It can also be upgraded to chain attack, which is useful for clearing out weak hordes. Throwing the shield at a stronger enemy will cause it to stick into them, slowly sawing them apart, which is so badass, but will also stun them in the process. This helps keep larger enemies at bay so you don't get overwhelmed, or just stop them in their tracks so you can run over and super shotgun their head into bloody chunks. Then there's the dash, which can be used to cover large distances. You lock onto an enemy whilst blocking and then press the right trigger to launch yourself over to them whilst also damaging them in the process. It is this specifically that makes Doom the Dark Ages not feel slow and heavy at all. The only feeling of heaviness you get is when you get to jump down from a ledge, and trust me, you get to do this a lot, and when you hit the ground it lets out this earth-shattering sound and all the basic enemies around you just explode. It's immensely satisfying. Another focus in the Dark Ages was the melee weapons, which all have a medieval feel to them. The Power Gauntlet is a spiked glove, the Flail is your traditional medieval spiked ball and chain, and then the Dread Mace is a mace but infused with godlike power. Each of these weapons are unlocked through story progression but provide something slightly different. All of them are tied to cooldowns and cause ammo drops on use. The Power Gauntlet is the quickest cooldown and does the lightest damage. The Flail is middling in both, and then the Dread Mace has massive damage but a really long cooldown. I found the most effective way to use the melee weapons was after a successful parry or combo of parries against larger enemies, especially when you get the Dread Mace later in the game, as it literally explodes enemies into a bloody mess on hit. Doom would not be Doom without the guns, and there are 11 guns to get familiar with in the Dark Ages. You have the classic shotguns, but then there are also plasma weapons, machine guns, rocket launchers, impaling weapons, a chain shot which shoots this super powerful metal ball, but the most fun, and probably the ones that caught most people's eyes during the trailers, are the Pulverizer and Ravager, or in layman's terms, the skull crushing weapons. These two literally crush skulls as ammo and fires out the shredded pieces of bone to take out enemies. The pulverizer has a wide spread and is useful for clearing waves, while the Ravager is a more direct stream of bone fragments that is useful against large elite enemies. All of the weapons felt great though, and of course there were some that I ended up naturally using more, like the pulverizer and super shotgun, but all of the weapons were viable to use and I didn't actively avoid any of them. It would be great to wipe out an initial horde using the pulverizer or rocket launcher and then dashing in and showing the super shotgun to the demons' faces. The plasma weapons could have an upgradable effect that caused chain shock to happen, and the machine gun weapon had a pincushion side effect which caused enemies to explode, sending out impaling shards in all directions. The guns were super fun and they just got more fun through the upgrade paths. With all of this combat now laid out, there was one more nifty thing they did when it came to armor. All armor or metal shields could be superheated with your guns, and then when they were glowing hot, you would throw the shield sword to shatter the armor. Putting this all together then gives the incredibly satisfying combat loop. You, as the Doomslayer, will be zipping about ripping and tearing through enemies with your arsenal of incredibly fun to use guns, parrying green attacks occasionally followed up with your own melee hit, stunning larger enemies with the shield sword while you take care of the faster ones, shield dashing great distances to close the gap and getting in close for that shotgun finisher. If there's armor, you will superheat it and throw the shield for an eruption of metal and close the distance for the kill. It all worked so seamlessly and it wasn't overwhelming at all, even though it was very methodical. The one downside of the combat for me was the glory strikes. A lot of the time for larger enemies they will glow purple just before dying, which indicates to you that they can be finished off with a glory strike. Most of these boil down to a hit with your shield or melee weapon or a swift kick with the Slayer's boot. None of them were that creative or engaging, which was a real shame. Otherwise though, the combat is sensational and goes a long way at making you live the power fantasy so many come to the Doom series for. Another thing I really liked about the gameplay of the Dark Ages was the difficulty settings. There are 4 core difficulties to choose from at the start, and these can be changed at any time. They increase the accessibility further by introducing sliders so you can fine-tune the difficulty to however you want. For me personally, I chose the ultra violence difficulty, but ended up increasing the damage I was doing to really fulfill the power fantasy I was looking for. This way the challenge level stayed at a reasonable high, whilst I was quite literally ripping and tearing like I would expect the Slayer to do. I spoke about upgrades earlier, and they are very important in this game to add to your combat prowess and, to be honest, your overall fun. A little bit of exploring the levels will reward you with gold, rubies or wraithstones, and each of these contribute to levels of upgrades. You can upgrade all of your weapons and each of these will unlock new abilities for them. On the shield side you have core upgrades, which unlock pretty key upgrades relating to enemies you can kill when you throw it, but then also upgrades for each rune you can unlock. Lastly, on the melee side, you can upgrade each of your 3 melee weapons to unlock unique traits and buffs. All upgrades are unlocked at the stationary sentinel shrines found throughout the levels, as there is no hub area. The Dark Ages takes the level approach for its progression. It is very linear and each chapter gives you a reward summary and an opportunity to stop playing after. This was not something that we see often in modern games, but it was very refreshing. I found it satisfying on the time management side of things to come home after work and say, okay, I'm only going to play 1 chapter tonight. There are sections in this game where you play riding the dragon, and there are sections where you play as a giant mech. Starting with the bad is the mech. These were slow, sluggish segments where you would punch an enemy enough times that you could unlock a special move or finisher, filter some dodges in between hits and then rinse and repeat. This was enjoyable at the start of the first mission, then it got boring pretty quickly. The dragon, on the other hand, was much more enjoyable. Not from a combat standpoint though. You would have to lock on and dodge a green projectile in order for your mounted gun to be able to defeat the enemy. Much like the mech, this was not interesting after the first encounter. What made the dragon enjoyable though was the speed and traversal. You're soaring high up above the world and swooping in and out of caves and into tight spaces, then flying sky high or dropping really low. I loved the maneuverability of it and had a lot of fun just flying from point A to point B. Doom the Dark Ages is never going to be the highest fidelity game around due to the art style that they use. Having said that, I am always thoroughly impressed with id Software's id Tech engine. Running on the newest version, id Tech 8, the Dark Ages looks fantastic in in all its blood-covered glory. Guns look like tools of destruction with spikes and gears, and it's all just very heavy metal. The Slayer himself looks incredibly badass with his little furry cape, but also like a genuine unstoppable force. The enemy variety is also something I would like to praise. In a game where you are annihilating hundreds if not thousands of enemies, it is super important to make it not feel samey. The best way to do that is with different enemy types to keep you guessing how to progress. These vast enemy types have really satisfying designs, merging the flesh and metal we see the rest of the world take on. The final boss fights were not just a spectacle to behold, but also a great design of characters. From a running perspective, it ran without a hitch on Xbox Series X. The gameplay felt very smooth, and I can't think of any video or audio bugs that occurred, so a massive shout out to id for that. The Doom soundtracks of 2016 and Eternal were both composed by Mick Gordon. Mick's soundtracks are undeniably incredible, and it was a shame to not have him composing the Dark Ages. A shame that, I'm afraid, is very noticeable. The composers brought in were Finishing Move, who are well versed in video game soundtracks. They have a lot of Xbox specific IP on their resumes, including the Master Chief Collection, Microsoft Flight Sim, and Grounded. Now, do any of these sound particularly metal to you? Well, that would be a no. While Finishing Move does a respectable job here, it was very lacking in its final output. There are heavy riffs, of course, but there is no special sauce there to elevate it to a new level. That is, of course, aside from the first and last chapters, both of which had incredible tracks playing. For a series that is often applauded for its soundtracks, it's a real disappointment to only have the quality shoved at either end of the campaign. As a lover of heavy music, I can't deny that I was a bit let down. Outside of the combat, the music stops, and then it does feel very empty when you are in periods of exploring. I wish they had secondary heavy tracks for these sections too. Now for the weakest part of this game, the story. id mentioned that in the Dark Ages they were taking the story out of the codex and putting it into the cutscenes. They were very true to their word here, and most chapters do start with a story cutscene. This game serves as a prequel to Doom 2016 and is set in an early war between Hell and the Sentinels. Unfortunately, the premise of the story is just not that interesting. The current Prince of Hell, Archdemon Azrak, is searching for a powerful weapon hidden by the humans, and that's about it really. The Doomslayer has his own mini-story running alongside this one too, in that he is tethered by the Makers and must break free. All in all, an unsatisfying story, but not one that really matters, as I don't think anyone comes to Doom for the story, they just want to get in and slay hordes and hordes of demons. The Dark Ages does have some collectibles and areas to explore. Each level has a certain number of secrets open to the player to discover. They can be in the form of little toys, gemstones and gold for upgrading, codex entries, weapon skins, or hidden battles that can give you an increase to health, shield, or ammo. You can see how much there is to find by opening the map when entering each level. Some of these collectibles, mostly the rarest Wraith Stones, will involve solving a puzzle to unlock, and sometimes these have me scratching my head for a few minutes, which is always enjoyable. Additionally, each level will have mission challenges that serve as specific things you can try and complete on that level alone. These reward you with some kind of collectible or upgrade mats like gold, rubies, or weapon skins. Similarly, in this fashion there are mastery challenges for each of your guns that you will unlock once you fully upgrade them, which will give you that very much sought after shiny gold weapon skin. Doom has always been fun and great at making you live through that power fantasy of being an unstoppable demon slayer, a force so unsurmountable that every being in hell fears you. The Dark Ages keeps up this tradition and is an incredibly good time. The combat, which is so important to this franchise, still feels great, and it is taken to new heights with the addition of the shield, which I hope they bring into the next game. The visuals look great in all your slaying needs, and the only hiccups, as slight as they may be, are with the soundtrack and story. Doom: The Dark Ages gets a casual gamer score of 8.5 out of 10. I've just uploaded a review for Claire Obscure Expedition 33 and a spoiler cast theory video for Lost Records Bloom and Rage. If either of those interest you, please go and check them out. If you liked this review, please let me know by giving a thumbs up and subscribe, or if you didn't like it, please leave a thumbs down and I'll try to do better next time. Let me know what you think of Doom: The Dark Ages in the comments below, and for everything casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.